Hi, I'm Robert Shalai, Chief of Police for Shelby Township Police Department, and welcome to Straight Talk. With me today are two special guests, Chief Corey O'Donohue from Royal Oak Police Department and Chief Gary Mayer from the Troy Police Department. Corey, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Chief Mayer, thank you very much. Guys, I've asked you both to come on the show to talk about some of the things going on right now in our country. But first, I'd like to start off talking about a little bit about your backgrounds. Have each of you guys tell the audience a little bit about yourself. Chief O'Donohue, we'll start with you.
Well, like you said, Chief, I'm Chief of Royal Oak. I've been with the Royal Oak Police Department for just over 23 years. Last 5.5, I've been the police chief.
Okay, and how big is your staff?
Total sworn officers, we have 79 sworn officers in our department.
How many civilians do you have?
We've got about 20 full-time civilians and about another 20, 25 part-timers.
Okay, so about 120 people you're leading. Chief Mayer?
I've been with the City of Troy Police Department since 1979. So I'm coming up on 38 years of police work. I had a year in another smaller jurisdiction. I've been Chief of Police in Troy. It's going on 7 years now. I've gotten to have a lot of very good friends. I count among them, you two, for law enforcement friends that have really made this a worthwhile job. City of Troy has 101 sworn police officers and 48 civilian employees. Okay,
so you have a decent sized staff also that you're leading?
Yes.
All three of us do, actually. A lot of hostility right now towards the police department in America. What's going on with this? Well, Chief O'Donohue, why don't we start with you?
Well, there's definitely been the last few years we've noticed a significant increase in the hostility towards police. I think it's important to point out that there's also a tremendous amount of support. All our communities, I think, have been incredibly supportive, and it's not a majority of the citizenry, and I think it's a small minority, but there is definitely a small group that's extremely hostile to police right now.
Okay. Chief Mayer?
I think it's important to note what Chief O'Donohue just said, which is the support from the community. I think all three of our communities, they're similar in that they're all suburban communities, but they're different communities. Each community has its own unique personality and the type of people that are there. And we've all discussed the tremendous support that our communities have given us. It can be in the form of gift baskets that come in the police department, cards, letters, social media postings. It's amazing the ongoing support that we've all seen. The hostilities are very unfortunate. We have all had to take action to make sure we're looking out for our officers' safety and see what we can do to make this keep our communities safe places.
Okay, thank you. Out of all the questions I'm about to ask you, I think this is the one that I can't wait to hear your answers. Why did this happen? How did we get to this point in 2016 in the United States where we have police officers around the country that are shooting targets for people? How? And why don't we start? Well, let's start with Chief Mayer first.
Well, it's a very sad state of affairs. You may notice, your audience may notice, all three of us are wearing mourning bands on our badges, which in law enforcement is we're mourning the loss of fellow law enforcement professionals. None of us have had to wear a mourning band for more than 7 days in a row, and that's because we're mourning the loss of 8 police officers in 2 events. It's very tragic. It's caused all of us and the police officers that we lead to relook, examine how we do our jobs, and to look at our own personal safety and our family safety, our on-duty and off-duty behavior to make sure we're not bringing some danger home to our families. I don't know how we ended up here. I don't know what happened. You could look at all the different events that have gone on. I don't know why the focus has suddenly become on police like this, other than to go back to all of our basic training, which is we're the most visible arm of the government. We're the ones that are out there 24/7. No matter what problem you have, you can call the police. We're going to show up and help. That's what we do. So we are the most visible arm of the government. And people seem to be taking that in the wrong direction, that they're going to take out their frustrations with whatever's going on, the economy, inability to get a job, other social issues. They're taking it on the people that are here to help.
Okay, thank you.
I think one of the major factors in this is the availability of video and a 24-hour news cycle. People get a small glimpse now of what police officers since the beginning of time have seen their whole careers. And I think these videos, many times of which are edited or at least not very short snippets, and they're making a judgment on that. And anyone who's been in investigations knows that's one piece of evidence. Any incident requires a full investigation, and you cannot make a snap judgment on such a small bit of evidence. But when those videos are played over and over and over, a certain image is reinforced. Also, I think to some degree law enforcement has to take some responsibility in, there has been misconduct in police work that does exist. One of the things as chiefs we have to do is to address that. And I think historically, I'm not sure that police departments have been transparent enough and aggressive enough in dealing with that. So you kind of have those two factors that play into it.
Okay. I want to jump in where Chief Mayer addressed a part about the government and people's reactions and feelings towards their government. I had a friend that I worked with in Southfield by the name of Mike Kozilla. I want to give him a shout out. A very smart man, where he had me believing that people were mad at their government. This is years ago. This is through 20 years of working with him, and different social incidences would come up or disturbances, whatever. And him and I would talk about this, and he had this firm belief, and he kind of embedded it on me that people were angry with their government, okay, and they were just lashing out to police, kind of like what you're talking about. However, I'm analyzing the stuff, okay, what's going on lately, and I have to disagree with him at this point, and I think that people now have truly turned on the police specifically, okay? I always had that mentality that they're mad at their government. And now I think they're truly angry at us. And like you said before at the beginning, Corey, not everybody, okay? I mean, this is a small minority, but they're making a lot of noise here. And obviously, the news networks are jumping all over this because it sells. We're all tuned to it, okay? I know I'm watching it every day also, and I think everybody is, so kind of interesting. But do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I would. I think we're saying the same thing, and maybe I wasn't clear. What I'm trying to say is we become the target. The police have become the target,
yes,
because they represent the government. So they can focus on what we do, as Chief O'Donoghue said, and they can focus on the snippets. Those are just rationalizations. They're wrong, but they're rationalizations as to why they should focus on us.
Yes.
So I think we're all saying the same thing, just slightly different
yes,
ways.
I agree with you.
Okay.
Have either of you two ever seen anything like this before in your law enforcement careers?
No, but as Chief Mayer pointed out, he's been at this so many more
Yes.
longer than I have.
Yes,
So
yes. I think you and I were like in second and fourth grade when Chief Mayer
that's
came on
I
the
don't know
job.
if I was born when he
I'll
started.
take that in the nicest way you intended, I'm sure.
Have you ever seen anything like this, sir?
No, it hasn't been to this level. I think, as we pointed out, the news media hasn't focused on us the way that they are now. The advent of the technology is what's changing it. There's always been the degree, if you go back before I got into law enforcement, but I studied the riots and some of the civil disturbances. Those would always show the police after the fact reacting to someone else's behavior. So they would show a police officer with a baton striking someone. Well, they wouldn't show the behavior that led up to that. So we're seeing the same thing here. As Chief O'Donoghue pointed out, we're seeing snippets of something that occurred after the fact, so you don't know what occurred. So you have to look at the totality of the circumstances before you draw a conclusion, just like we do when we're presenting criminal cases or when we are looking at someone's bad behavior from a criminal aspect. We look at the totality of it, not just one little snippet that someone presents.
Okay.
So technology's changed that and then painted us in a bad light.
Okay. The only thing I thought in my head, I was trying to recall, have I ever seen anything like this in my career? The only thing that was even close was the ambush in the Seattle coffee house several years ago. There was 4 officers sitting there, they're having a coffee, and some guy walked in and shot all 4 of them in the head in a matter of seconds. And I drew on that and remembered, but I discussed this with Mark Coyle, our deputy chief, and Mark said that didn't lead, that wasn't precipitated by anything. This
Right.
guy just walked in and did this. These guys are actually, I think, feeding off of the current environment going on right now, and is being fueled by the media, is one of my beliefs. Any thoughts on that, either one of you?
I think you summed it up pretty well. I think that's
Okay.
pretty accurate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was Dallas a surprise or a shock to either one of you?
Yeah, it was terrible.
Yeah, it was a shock. I think some people are portraying as an inevitability of the current climate and dialogue that's going on with police. I'm not. It was shocking. That and then Baton Rouge shortly after that. It was shocking. It was terribly sad. Most people don't. Maybe they do, but law enforcement when there's an attack on law enforcement, it's an attack on all of us. And law enforcement officers, we have a shared experience in doing police work, and we all feel it. That's why at a police officer's funeral, you'll see thousands of police officers there. And it's just tragic. And when you hear the stories about these officers and who they were and the families they leave behind, it's tragic.
Chief Mayor?
There's a saying on the Police Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C. It isn't how these people died, it's how they lived that made them heroes. And the officers that we're talking about here in Baton Rouge and Dallas, they were doing their job. They're doing what police officers are supposed to do. They were out there keeping order and responding to calls for service. And essentially they were assassinated in the line of duty. And it's horrendous to think about, that their families aren't going to have them to come back to. And that, so yeah, it shocks all of us. It shocks our conscience. As a society, it should shock everybody. Every good citizen should be shocked and concerned about that. And as we started this program with, we are all very happy with the outpouring of support that all three of our communities have given to the local police.
Yes.
They've all been very good. So they're doing a lot, the communities are doing a lot to counter that negativity. If that wasn't there, I can't imagine going in and facing the police officers that I deal with daily. If they didn't have the community support, if it looked like everybody was against us, it would be a dark, dark day in
I
law
agree
enforcement.
totally.
Yep.
It'd be very hard for us to get motivated to go out and do
Yes.
their jobs. I want to give you a little analogy here. My grandmother and grandfather, I was very close with both of them. They're both deceased back in 1990, within 3 months of each other. I was much closer with my grandmother than I was my grandfather, even though I loved them both. You know, he died before she did in September, okay? And then he died in September, and then she died in December. I grieved when he died, okay? I grieved. It was horrific. It was the first person I ever cared about in my life that died. Well, when she died 3 months later, I never grieved over her. I was still grieving over him, if that makes any sense. And the analogy is, when Dallas happened, I was shocked, I was surprised, saddened, obviously. I'm going to sum it up. I was heartbroken and devastated. I really took it personally. I actually made myself physically ill. I came in and I addressed all my troops within a few days, discussing everything. And one of the things I told them, and we'll talk about this in a minute, is like, this isn't over. And I want them to be vigilant and on guard. This is not over. But when Louisiana happened, Baton Rouge, the next week, it was almost like the exact same feeling my grandparents. I'm still grieving over Dallas, okay? I'm still grieving and hurting over Dallas. And then this happens, and the grieving hasn't come out over it. I don't have the same feeling. I don't want to become numb to this, if that makes any sense. So here's a question for the both of you. Actually, this is probably my second favorite question of the day. Is this over? Are these attacks on law enforcement over? They've killed 10 of us now, I believe. Is it over, or is it just begun?
It would seem unlikely that it seems likely there'll be another attack on police officers. I think everyone anticipates that, and how you guard against that. It is a challenge. You do not want your police officers to have an us versus them mentality, right? We're part of the community. We live in neighborhoods. Police officers, they do a job and then they go out and they're regular people just like everybody else. So I think it's hard to say this, but I think it's likely that something like this will happen again.
Okay. Chief Mayor, what are your thoughts?
I hope it's over. But in this line of work, we prepare for the worst. So we continue to prepare. We continue to do what we can to train and equip our people to go out as if it isn't over, and they should expect something like that. We have to. It's just like it's the nature of our job. I'd like to think that we don't see anything to this scale again. There's a lot of movements to reduce law enforcement deaths that occurred well before this. The Below 100 project's been going on for a few years. There's been a lot of advances in law enforcement to stop officers' deaths in the line of duty. It's just the scale of what we're seeing for these multiple attacks, these ambush-style attacks, is something we haven't seen before. So we hope it isn't over. We hope it is over and we don't see it again.
Okay. What can we do, and we've touched on this, all three of us have, as chiefs of our own departments, to ensure that our communities are on board with us, they believe in us, they know when they pick up the phone they're going to get a great level of service from us, and trust us. And I think all three of us are doing certain things, but why don't we talk about it a little bit? Why don't we start with Corey?
Well, one of the things we talk about is, I think you have to have, I read an article recently and it just says how, I'll just take a line from it because I'm going to screw up the quote, but there could be no resolution without each of us, meaning both sides of this issue, discharging our responsibilities as citizens to be part of the answer. We need personal connection that comes between blacks, blues, whites, everyone to getting to know each other. And that's where it has to happen. And I think honest dialogue, honest, addressing the problem in an honest way is what you have to do. To that end, an honest look at police work and how police work is done should be an ongoing thing. We're not above scrutiny. One of the things we're doing amongst our 3 communities is we're doing some fair and impartial police training, and it's the idea that that every individual has some type of bias, whether it, they don't necessarily realize it, and most of that is from just a lack of an exposure to certain demographics, and this training is to kind of get people to recognize if they're exhibiting areas of bias subliminally. So if it's a I forget the term, you're going to help me out with it, right? But it's a type of bias. It's not an overt racism or an overt action. It's an implicit bias is what it is, where and just getting to question themselves, is that an issue, and is that bias manifesting itself in any way they do their job? That's something that our 3 communities have come together. We're doing some mutual training, and I think that's a good positive step. But there's also, when you look at the police shootings, we got police officers, we expect them to go out and do a dangerous job and to be proactive and seek out law violators and take action. When that ends in some type of tragedy, these officers have a right to a fair and thorough investigation. Nobody is interested in tolerating misconduct. And if there is misconduct, the review that goes into those all these police shootings is extremely thorough. It usually involves several levels of government outside the local police department, and they have a right to that. You can't ask these young 20-something officers to go out and do this job and then not promise that they'll have that. And that's something I think as a society we have to be committed to do. Refrain from making a snap judgment based on a video or based on a tweet or based on something like that.
Let me jump in here right here on that statement. Down in Baltimore, that's exactly what they did. The leadership, I don't know if it was the prosecutor, I think they called it the state's attorney, jumped in and charged 6 police officers, blacks and white officers, with the Freddie Gray death. I just saw an article this morning. The judge dismissed the remaining 3 charges. I'm sorry, the remaining 3 officers who were facing charges. They dismissed all the counts, and then the other 3 officers have all been acquitted. Now, this is coming from a black judge. That city burned for days over this incident. And this is talking about coming to a quick judgment and everyone deciding their guilt. And I just thought that was a great example to jump in. But Chief Mayor, let me hear what you have to say on this question.
We've all discussed, and all 3 of us are very proud of this endeavor we're going into with the fair and impartial policing training. You don't see that where you get 3 police departments coming together to do that kind of training. And what we're doing is we're taking the couple hundred police officers that we have between us and all of our civilian employees, and we're actually mixing them together so they can see what it's like in other police departments and how, as the police community, we're all going to look at this the same way, and we're going to train them. And I'm very, very proud of that effort, and it took a lot of time for us 3 to develop that. And I'm very proud of how that's going. I'm looking forward to seeing that take fruition. All 3 of us live in different communities. We police different communities. We have very diverse communities between the 3 of us. All 3 communities are different, but there's a lot of similarities. The people that live in them are all different. Troy, speaking for my city, we are the second most diverse city in Michigan. And it's our task to go forward and police this community, even though it is diverse and even though it is different. And we have to bring our policing techniques and abilities to that, and we have to train to that. And I think we all do a really good job with that. the point that Chief O'Donnell brought up about these rush for judgment, and as you said, the rush to judgment on these police incidents before they're actively and completely investigated is something that has to stop. And we have to make sure that the people that work for us understand that they're going to get a fair shake if they're involved in an incident, that the community is going to support them and we're going to support them, and it's going to be fair and impartial. If they made a mistake, they made a mistake, and we all know going into this job, you have to pay the consequences if you make a mistake. But if you didn't, you shouldn't have to.
Great points, and thank you very much. Next thing I want to discuss is social media. I've found in our police department, I should say we found in our police department, that we're connecting with residents on a level we never have before at Shelby Township. We started the Facebook page itself back from scratch probably around 14 months ago. Right now we have well over 11,000 followers, closing in on 12,000. And on a daily basis, the people are interacting with us. They want to know what's going on. We're sharing a ton of information. And I'm going to be honest with you, we had some of our staff that didn't like it. And I first got told by Deputy Chief Coyle that the midnight guys don't like it at all. They don't understand it. They don't know why we're doing this, etc. Our community wants to be involved. I can tell you this, these horrific acts that happened in Dallas and Baton Rouge, I have never seen outpouring support for a police department in my 3 agencies like I have over the last couple of weeks. I mean, we literally have to have a person stationed at the door to accept the gifts and cards. They're coming in. People are bringing their children just to hug us. It really moves me, it touches me. I'm extremely appreciative. Can you guys want to discuss the social media and then what's going on at your own stations with your community? And we'll wrap it up.
I'd like to point out, just coming in here, 3 different uniforms, and in the community we're here in Shelby, everybody was very gracious. People were greeting us. The kids were all very friendly, and so that's very gratifying to see that kind of stuff in law enforcement. It makes you feel like you're doing something with your job. So I think things are going the right direction in this community. I think the social media aspect is something we have to embrace, and we have to do what we can to network with people. It's the way things are now. You have to do the social media stuff. You need to look no further than the Pokemon Go games and all that. If we figure out a way to market that in law enforcement, we'll be heroes. But I think the Facebook, what you've accomplished with Facebook is very good here in Shelby Township. You didn't tell Chief O'Donnell, you and I, that we're going to be throwing around Facebook numbers, so I'm not prepared to counter with how many Facebook followers we have in Troy, but I'm sure we're pretty close. We're all proud of our social media campaigns, and we got to continue in that direction because that's what people expect. And it's our job to deliver what people expect. That's what we do.
Thank you.
It's interesting you said how the midnight shift doesn't like it, because so much of, in our line of work, some people kind of need a mindset change. In Royal Oak, we have a community engagement specialist. Their job, this person's job, is to engage the community, and that's what they do with social media. Last Monday, they rolled out a whole communication plan citywide, and it was a very robust report, and all the things we're doing in Royal Oak. One thing is, also is, I think all the officers now are much more aware that they have to be ambassadors. The days of, I'm going to be a police officer, I'm going to save myself for the big one, and those days are over. Every police officer is an ambassador. They need to go out and they need to remember we're here to protect and we're here to serve. That's our job. One thing we did in Royal Oak is we've always given out awards for things that our officers do, and they tend to focus on meritorious service, bravery, that kind of thing. Last year we rolled out a customer service award, because for the officer who just does a great job day in and day out, and we get notes about them on just doing the community policing type activities. And so we designated a special award for that, because that is a critical part of ensuring your police department has the support of the community by doing those kind of things. So
I love that, and I might steal that from you, just so you know.
And like everything else you've done since you're chief. That's
Gentlemen,
okay.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. You've been watching Straight Talk with Robert Schlide. We'll see you next month.